Okay, this is about my antique books and rare editions. I collect these. I enjoy collecting these. I love collecting these the way some people collect the way some people collect stamps and coins. And I do the same with bookmarks and coffee cups too. But that's another video, maybe. I'm not really into reading books electronically. I have to own the thing when I'm done with it. And some books, they're just very specific editions I love. Sometimes just because of the artwork, sometimes for other reasons, but I just enjoy having the book in my hands and looking at it and everything about it. And I wanted to go over some of them today. I'm sure there's probably going to be more coming as I continue collecting and trading and buying. All right, we'll start with four of my favorites here. The first two of which I collect many versions of this. And right now I only have one of each. And I'm going to have to stay involved with keeping all of the ones that I come into contact with. This is Candide by Voltaire. Of course, first written, published in the 18th century. This, I like, now first of all I should say generally I love books, especially in my collection, that were printed before the 1930s. I just found that to be true. Now this one, I think this was, yeah, there we go, copyright 1930. This one I like all the interesting artwork in it. Print is, average. It's not too large, not too small, but I'll show you some more examples of the artwork in here where I can find it. It's all kind of lewd stuff, but a lot of that is in the story too. So I'm looking to collect many more versions and keeping them. This, God, wonderful book. The cover is falling apart here. It's to be expected, it's pretty old. This is the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I recommend this book to absolutely everybody. This has gorgeous artwork in it too, as you can see. And this is published 1947. Let's take a look at some more of this artwork. Look at the, I even enjoy that art going on around the text. But there's some, see, isn't that gorgeous? Look at the colors and the style. And this is in, although that cover is falling apart, for being printed in 1947, this is in, as you can tell, pretty good shape for the book itself. So, as with Candide, I'm going to be collecting many more versions of that. The Prophet, Khalil Gibran. This is probably the most popular version of it. I'm more used to seeing this cover on it than any other edition, anyways. But I'm including this because I kind of have to, it's The Prophet. This is 1965. And for this, also, pretty good condition, excluding that cover. But the artwork, I believe done by the author too. I just think needs to be in with the book. Anyways, have to include that too, although this is not so rare. It is aging though. Mark Twain. They've shortened the title here from the original. Now that's just on the cover. Personal Recollections of Joan of Arc is the full title of this. And this book is pretty readily available. In fact, the copyright's expired on it, so you can read it online. But this is one of my favorite books, partly because Joan of Arc is a personal hero of mine, and I love knowing that I share that with Mark Twain, that she was a personal hero of his, too. Now, this book a lot of people don't really know about. I've come to find out, even Mark Twain fans. Long time Mark Twain fans. This may not even have actually been very well publicly known until relatively recently, because it was originally published in 1895, not as a book, but it was serialized in Harper's Magazine. So people got a bit at a time, and anyway, in fact, I ran into an old friend who now teaches literature, and she was very surprised to find this. She thought maybe it was some kind of mistake. But actually, he wrote this under a pseudonym, and I don't even know what that is, but I know he did so, and it was a different one than Mark Twain. But I know that he also felt this was his best and most important work. He said so in his own words. I don't remember the exact quote. Now, what's interesting about this, you can see it's in fairly good condition. I think this was a fairly recent, maybe late 80s publication. Yeah, 1989. Original edition, 1896 and 1899. What makes this interesting is he tells her story from the point of view of a character, a fictionalized character, which was based on Joan of Arc's page that was present with her through the 3 most important phases of her life. And this is a more lovingly told story of who she was and what she went through, what she put herself through, than anything else I've read about her. And so I'm calling this rare, I'm including here, because it's readily available, but not too many people know about it. Lots of so-called complete Mark Twain works lists out there do not include this. So kind of sad. I know this is not a book review video, but I had to tell you about it. So those are my 4 of my favorite books. Let's get on to, now this is the oldest book I have. Hope we can see this good enough in the light. Sir Walter Scott's The Lady of the Lake. Pretty small, as you can see. Not too small. You can tell how old it is just by looking at it, right? Let me show you the published date. This is 1908. In pretty good condition. Except for the cover, the stitching there is coming apart. But 1908, although there's a lot of writing in it on the sidelines, I have to expect that kind of thing. Anyways, that is the oldest book I have. Wonderful little epic narrative poem, if you've not read it yet. Okay, this Epics of Italian Literature by Cesar Foligno. This is 1920 edition. Wow. Apparently some library is still waiting for it. But I got it at the Friends of the Library book sale. Here you can see 1920. Okay, now this is not exactly a book, but must be included. Field Museum, Oxford University, Expedition to Kish, Mesopotamia, 1923 to 1929. That's why I have to include it. So, let's see, 14 plates and photogravure and 2 maps. Field Museum of Natural History, Chicago, 1893. Anthropology Leaflet 28. So, basically about the archaeological finds between 1923 and 1929 in Kish, Mesopotamia. For that time, pretty good condition. Near excellent as far as everything within the front and back covers, which are as thin as the paper itself. So it's just one of those cool little finds, you know, when you walk into an old bookstore and just see something, you immediately think, I am so walking out of here with you in my possession. Anyways. I might even tape that back together. Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Now, I am not a big science fiction fan. I don't require aliens and lasers and spaceships in my science fiction. As long as there's some kind of, you know, fantasy coming out of actual known science, then I'll get into it. But this is a very unique story. Based in science fiction, it's a lot more than that. This is the basis for my favorite movie of all time, of the same name, Solaris. But talking about the original 1972 Russian version, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. Not the horrible 2002 remake of the same name with George Clooney. That was a horrible, lifeless, pointless thing. Anyways, one of the things I love about this edition, and I specifically went looking for this older one, not just to have an older one. It looks very 60s, maybe even early 70s, doesn't it? And that movie, the one I love, that was made in the 1972, year I was born. It's another thing about the remake. It was a remake of the movie, but it had nothing to do with the book. And I wish somebody would just make another version, if one's going to be made, based on the book. Because what Tarkovsky did with his movie version, he changed a lot. He added an entire 45-minute sequence at the beginning that had nothing to do with the book, and the author was not pleased with it. Yet it's its own beautiful work of art. And anyways, my point is, you go looking for this book online, mostly what you're going to find is images of George Clooney from that remake on this book, which is so wrong because, like I said, it's not an adaptation from this book. It's adapted from the original movie, the better movie. And so I wanted a book of this beautiful story without George Clooney's smug mug staring back at me. So this is an excellent one to have. Now this, I don't quite remember when this was, this version. Okay, this is 1970. No, Berkeley Medallion Edition, 1971. So I recommend this story to everybody. You can see it's relatively thin. What do we have? 223 pages. Not going to tell you what it's about. I already said too much about this story, and this isn't a book review video. But perhaps I'll move on to that in another video. Recommend the book and these older versions of it, preferably any edition that was pre-2002, so you can get some of this groovy 60s, 70s artwork on it rather than George Clooney. So there's that. Okay, this is an interesting find, I'm sure you can tell. African Myths and Tales. Just like the title implies, myths and tales collected from throughout the continent. This is, let's see, what year is this? Love that. Love that. First printing, November 1963. This is the first printing, Dell Publishing. Okay. So, some of the myths. We have the book divided into parts. Myths. Myths of primeval times. Tales. Trickster tales. Explanatory tales. Dilemma stories and moral tales. Tales of human adventure. This is the Metamorphoses of Ovid, and I like this version because of this very beautifully simplistic, well, the whole presentation, the text and the art. It looks like classic literature, you know what I mean? There's no overwhelming imagery jumping out at you. This is a 1961, I believe. Yes, first published 1955. Well, through them it is. Reprinted 1961. This is the Penguin Classics version, translated by Mariam Inns, Metamorphoses of Ovid, 1961. My favorite version of that book. Edgar Rice Burroughs. Look at this. I knew what decade this belonged to, this edition, when I first picked it up before I glanced at the date. Look at that. If you're writing a sci-fi, fantasy kind of thing in the 1920s, you have to have a monster carrying a beautiful girl away. The Monster Man, Edgar Rice Burroughs. Ace edition. This is 1929. And although there's some discoloration, you can see it's in not bad shape. This probably just sat on people's shelves for a long time, and I'm guessing was read. I don't see very many marks of it even having been thumbed through. It's not dog-eared. Probably just read once by each owner, maybe owned by just a few people. But Edgar Rice Burroughs, always fun stuff. You can easily overlook the temporal science fiction, even of his time, because the stories are so much fun. Anyways, great version of that. This, I don't know what the cover looks like, don't know if it'd ever have one. This is the condition I got it in. India, My America. This one man's story about growing up in India, being Indian, by Krishnalal Sridharani, My India, My America, Halcyon House Garden City, New York. This is 1943, Halcyon House. And I can't even say this is my favorite version. This is the only one I've ever owned, but I loved this story. And anyways, 1943. Okay. As with the last, I do not know what the cover looks like. This is the condition I got it in. Robert Silverberg's The Realm of Prester John. Too much to go into telling you about who Prester John was or is thought to be, if you don't already know about him. Let's just say goes into legends about the figure of that name in Ethiopia and some holy relics and sites that some of these holy relics might be in that Prester John was kind of guardian of. This is hardcover, obviously, 1972, and this hardcover edition, wow, look at that. Wonder what happened there. 1972, the hardcover edition is now rare. I don't even think this says the year. Yeah, it does down here. I had to look it up. Okay, let's take a quick look at some of these paperbacks. Russian Theater from the Empire to the Soviets by Mark Slonim or Slonim. This was far more interesting than many of you might believe. Now, I do have a particular interest in Russian history, particularly all the ingredients that went into making the Bolshevik Revolution and everything that happened around it and because of it. Interestingly enough, in the 1920s, with the institutionalizing of collectivism, the arts were given a hell of a lot more freedom than you would expect in that time. In the 1920s, they hadn't quite yet brought on the censorship that would come with full-out Stalinism. And it so happened at that time in Russia, there were so many great artistic breakthroughs being made. But this book really gets into a lot of it. Things happening backstage, interesting friendships between famous Russian artists, playwrights, dancers, actors, actresses, composers, painters, authors, and adventures they had, and having to sneak off to America, and in some cases going back. Anyways, very interesting find. This is, let's see, what edition is this? God, and I promised this would not be a book review video, but here I am giving little bits of it. 1962 edition. I'm not seeing very many of these around. This is a very, very, very interesting find, though, and I recommend it. Cervantes, Don Quixote. This, I love, as with one I stated before, I love this direct, simplistic artwork there. Huge book. This is, obviously, Cervantes was Shakespeare's contemporary. This is, let's see, what edition is this? What year? Okay, this is 1964. And for a paperback, that's pretty good condition. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Not too rare a version of it, but it is older. This one is... Okay, published New Orleans, 1948. I know. Mixed feelings about that first word there. And all it implies, but let's see, what year is this? Okay, this is 1952, despite that stain on the cover right there. Not bad condition. Tragedy of Dr. Faustus, Christopher Marlowe. Very, very stereotypically 17th century art going on there. Looks suspiciously like Dr. John Dee. But I'm sure that's pure coincidence. Okay, this is, I don't remember what year. Washington Square Press. All right, 1959. It's an okay condition, but I like that version. There's no, the main thing that all of these have in common, older books not being given modern artwork. And actually, come to think of that, let me pull out an example of what I'm talking about, of what I do not want in my books. As great as this is, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled, look at that. So that's supposed to be Isis. I don't like this cover. This is not headdress that the goddess Isis would wear. Isis always wears either the uraeus, the bullhorn encircled sun disk, or the symbol, her symbol of herself, which looks like that. It's like 3 steps, and it represents a throne, and her name, Isis, means throne. Anyways, that's a very modern looking digital. I don't like it. You get the point. The Nile, Life Story of a River, Emil Ludwig, Viking Press. Pretty thick hardcover, obviously. And I love this because it centers around, as you'd expect, the Nile, just different things that have happened around it and the importance it's held. And come to think of it, I want to now go out and find a book. I'm inspired to go out and find one that's written in the same vein about the Amazon for the other half of the world. This is, let's see, published originally in 1937. And this would be, this one is published 1937. Yeah, there we go. So, 37. As you can see, this is pretty good condition. Probably another one that just sat still on somebody's shelf. Coffee table kind of, I am not a coffee table book kind of guy. If a book is sitting on my coffee table, it's because I am currently reading it. There's some artwork in here, you know, photos and sketches, and it's not necessary that it would be, but I'm glad they're here. It's all about the information. Okay, save these 2 books for last because they kind of reflect one another. This, I think, is getting to be a bit rare, especially this hardcover version, Charles Godfrey Leland's Etruscan Magic and Occult Remedies. Late president of the Gypsy Lore Society, Charles Godfrey Leland. All right, let's see what, find what publication date of this. I like the Eye of Horus they put in down there. And more Etruscan, very typically Etruscan artwork. Copyright New Matter, 1963 by University Books. Obviously centers around Etruscan lifestyles and magic and occult remedies. Here's some of the, go back to the first part. Gods and Goblins. This goes into religion and spirituality. Some of the specific names of them. And we also have incantations, divination, medicine, and amulets. all of the religion and spirituality that came from the gods and goddesses described. Pretty good condition. Bronze Etruscan amulet against the evil eye, in possession of the author. What's funny is he may mean that in a dual context. I'm kidding. Excellent book. I've recently finished this. Doesn't matter what you believe religiously, spiritually. This is collected from histories that he could locate in Italy, and through talking to local gypsies and, other locals about local legends and stories. And obviously the Etruscans preceded modern Italians, Romans, and had an effect on Strega, Stregaria, or Italian witches and Italian witchcraft, which brings us to our next book. And this would be the newest book I have. This is the Book of the Holy Strega by Raven Grimassi. I love that word, Strega. I love looking at it. I love hearing it, saying it. Now this book, it's kind of thin, not too thin. Let me see, the total pages here would be 174. This takes on the subject of the last book I just talked about. I'm including this here. God, what a beautiful cover. Because it is, although the newest book I have, first published 2009, this is the more recent 2012 version, which it's still have a month and a half left to go in this, before 2012 is finished. This is already, I think, in very limited edition. I cannot find it online for less than $25, despite that, being less than 200 pages. Very well worth it. He takes up where Charles Leland leaves off. A new book about the old ways, Italian witchcraft and witchcraft practices and histories. He even has a little section back here, I believe, hang on, about Charles Leland. Yeah, the author of the last book we just took a look at. So, let's see, I just checked online too. You can, there were 3 copies left of this on the author's own website, and it was available for the same price on Amazon, but I recommend this just as much as I do Leland's Etruscan Magic and Occult Remedies book. But all of these, and sadly, books like this that I'm so drawn to, that are new, are almost immediately as rare as that 1908 version of Lady of the Lake I have. Hopefully this won't be in that condition 100 years from now. So, that's it. There may be more in the future, but wanted to give you a quick glimpse at my specific editions of these books, some of them rare, some of them just old. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.